and you might want to talk about this issue about separate toilets for men and women after an announcement by the Business Secretary, Kemi Badenoch. Let's talk to Director of Sport Fair Play and Fair Play for Women, Fiona McAnena. Hello, Fiona.
Hello, Kevin. You got my name right, but I'm with Sex Matters now.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, you used to be with this.
You are right, yes.
Right, yeah. I thought you were with Sex Matters. Anyway, good to have you on board. And I won't get that wrong again, I promise. I probably will, actually, knowing me, but I'll try my best. Now, separate toilets for men and women. You know, an outbreak of common sense. Oh, I know. Let's go back to what we always used to have. Gents and ladies, that no one ever complained about. No one ever asked for gender-neutral loos. No one ever asked for unisex toilets, and yet they've been imposed on us all over the land. Kemi Badenoch has at least taken a step in the right direction by saying, from now on, all shops, offices and shopping centres must have, you know, separate loos for men and women. That's new shopping centres, new offices and new restaurants. In other words, these laws, this new law, does not apply to a single building that actually exists at the moment. Also, for God's sake, why aren't schools included in these new rules? In other words, Kemi's heart is in the right place, but this smacks to me of political chicanery.
Well, I think there are two parts to this. So this new law is a building regulation law, so it's not necessarily Kemi's department, but it is a step in the right direction. What Kemi called for last week, Kemi Badenoch, is evidence of people giving organisations, workplaces and so on, having the wrong policies. So having policies that say that someone is entitled to go into the facilities of their choice based on their identity rather than on their sex. And I think that is the other part to this, Kevin. I think that will help address the issues, because a lot of people have been led to believe that somehow the law requires them to let people with transgender identities go wherever they want. And the combination of these new building regulations and the Kemi Badenoch's call for evidence for input last week, I think will give many organisations the courage to put things right, to say, you know, most people who work here or most people who visit here want to have the privacy of single-sex spaces, and it is lawful to do so. And I think that's the fundamental thing here. Schools, you're right, that's another department again. They are, I hope, working on it, because it's very obvious that, particularly with mobile phones now, girls are not safe in mixed toilets, and it's the least we ought to do for them is to protect them when they're at school.
I mean, how did all this start, Fiona? As I just said, we had a pretty good system for more than a century. I'm not sure that public loos existed. I don't know when they started, but for a long, long time, we've had a good system. It's called, like, if you're a woman, that's called the ladies. If you're a bloke, that's called the gents. Who mixed this system up? Who decided it wasn't necessary? Have you ever met anyone who said, you know what I really love? Are gender-neutral loos. I've never met anyone who doesn't hate them.
No, I've never met anyone who wants them. But one of the charities that campaigns for young people with transgender identities today said that non-binary people will now have a problem. Now, as far as humanity knows, everyone ever born is either male or female. And really how you identify or how you dress, whether your hair is short or long, doesn't change that. So I don't know how we got here, but I'm very glad that we're moving back in the right direction. I do know that, you know, some people have been misled about the law. They've been confused, and we've been campaigning for some years now to try and get clarity about that, and to give people the confidence to know what their rights are, and organisations the confidence to serve their customers and their employees better.
And what about I tend to be a bit hardline about issues and a bit probably over furious about everything. I get more furious every day about everything in this mad country. But all these virtue signalling organisations, you know, restaurants and all that, and clubs and offices, who sort of, oh, look, gender-neutral loos, that'll make us look good in this wonderful new woke world. Let's just have them. all those organisations, what I'd do is I would force them to reconvert their loos back to ladies and gents. We should do this, otherwise we're still going to have thousands of buildings, probably more than that, tens of thousands of buildings around the country where these accursed unisex loos will continue to prevail.
Yeah, and I think people will have the confidence now to say the law does not require you to do this. It's completely reasonable to separate certain things into male and female, and that will benefit everyone, men and women alike. All the evidence shows that this is what people want. They do not want mixed toilets. So I am hopeful that sensible organisations, workplaces and businesses will relabel the toilets, because many of them, all they did was change the labels. You know, they changed the men's and the women's to say unisex with urinals and unisex with cubicles. Well, we all can decode that. So let's hope we get some sensible policies back in place now.
That's a very good point, because somebody pointed out to me as I was saying, God, they should reconvert, go back to the ladies and gents. Somebody said to me, yeah, but, you know, you'd be talking about maybe quite a few small businesses, very expensive. It's not that expensive, is it, come to think of it? Just got to change the labels on the doors.
Yeah, I mean, those places that only have one little cubicle in the back of a small cafe or whatever, they've never been affected by this, and they still won't be. But that's another matter. You know, there's only ever one person in there at a time, and it's not a problem. That's not what we're talking about. And I think this is also about changing rooms too. You know, people do not need to compromise the privacy, particularly of females, by letting males access the facilities that are marked female. The law does not require them to do that.
Yeah. And can I just say, Fiona, I might have mentioned this to you before, but, you know, of course, women are particularly concerned about this because, you know what we're talking about. If you let everybody into the loos, not all the blokes in there will be well-intentioned. Some of them will be there for nefarious reasons, and you know what I'm talking about. But also, if I may make a statement on behalf of the male gender, last time I looked, I was a bloke. Not even allowed to say things like that anymore, are you? But I'm a bloke. We don't like it either. I find it very uncomfortable. Am I wrong?
Well, all the evidence is that almost nobody likes it, both men and women. And men dislike it. From what the research that's been done, men dislike walking in on a woman too.
Exactly, that's my point. That's exactly my point. I feel uncomfortable about infringing on what should be a woman's safe space. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, you've probably heard the saying, decent men stay out so that bad men stand out. Yeah. You know, most men stay out of women's spaces, and they don't think it's because we're accusing them of being predatory or accusing them of any nefarious intent. It's simply because it's the decent thing to do.
Well, Fiona, it's good to talk to you, and let's keep track of this because, as I say, I'm not entirely convinced by this. It's a statement in the right direction, but none of these buildings have been built yet. I'd like to go retrospectively back to a lot of these buildings, and particularly schools, and make a stand for common sense. Loos for ladies and gents. It's not difficult, folks. Fiona, thank you so much for your time. Fiona McAnena there from Sex Matters.